Yo, what is going on, guys? J.Yumeko here, and today we're back with some more The Shell, Part 1, Inferno. Last time we left off. Oh, what happened? Oh, yeah. God, jeez. Okay, so last time we left off... Spoilers! Go watch the last video if you haven't already. Toko got her ass killed. Toko Mizuhara got her ass killed. So, it was interesting because she, in a daze, just kind of happened to walk, she happened to get on a bus, happened to get off the bus, happened to walk randomly around a neighborhood, and happened to end up at a dead-end road, specifically where this particular house caught her eye and caused her to stop. And at that particular moment, the killer happened to walk up to her, invite her inside, offer her tea, and all this stuff, and then fucking kill her. So, there is just a mountain of coincidences surrounding how the fuck she ended up in front of the killer's house that just doesn't compute. I mean, let me turn this game down. I'm having a hard time thinking. But how? And then the fact that Mizuhara, of all people, not only does she seem to particularly hate men, but she just hates everybody that's not Toko, right? So then, how the fuck did this random ass stranger manage to convince her to come into his house? And like, I get it that, okay, well, she was like all fucked up because basically she thought she killed Toko, almost, right? Or at the very least, she was the reason that Toko got hit by a truck. So I guess I could see that, but it's just the fact of that she, like, I'm supposed to believe she randomly ended up there by chance? I'm not too sure about that one. But, yeah, that's the other big thing that happened last episode. Mizuhara stole Toko's medication that she uses for her, what is it called? Insomnia? No, it's not insomnia. I forget what it's called. But basically Toko ended up passing out, falling onto the road, and then a truck quite fucking literally ran over her. So the doctor basically said, like, yeah, more than likely she's gonna be paralyzed from the waist down. And then there ended up being some kind of emergency, like, high risk surgery that they ended up having to perform. That seems to have been successful, but again, they were kind of like acting as though it was like a last option thing. So, with that being said, where specifically we're picking up, we are here to talk to the one and only Shin Katsuragi, because we found a magazine containing his work, including a picture of him behind Toko Mizuhara's dresser. So we know how she got the magazine. She stole it from her mother's office. But then the picture being there is a little bit weird. So again, I'm not exactly sure whether this is... I'm not exactly sure whether this is something where it's like Toko's mother maybe had some kind of thing with Shin Katsuragi. Maybe she just happened to have it. Either way, this has finally been the thing to point us in the direction of Shin Katsuragi, the motherfucker that I know without a fucking doubt is the killer. Okay? This guy has been my number one suspect since, not necessarily since the beginning of the game, but he's always been on my radar, and ever since even before fucking Suzuriko died, I was fully convinced it was him. So, we're finally here to confront him. Hopefully we get a little bit more out of him, but he's a fucking slippery little bastard. So, I took the bus down to Waseda Street to Nakano. Shin Katsuragi's office was only a short walk from the station. I was sure this was the place since I'd been there a month ago.
Katsuragi-san, irasshaimasu ka?
A few seconds came and went, but there were still no signs of him. I pressed my ear to the door, but I couldn't see anyone inside. Swell. Just swell. He must be out. Oh, now what? Did I come all this way for nothing? Wait, maybe Uzomi can help. I'd had him look into Katsuragi's whereabouts before, so maybe he discovered something else during that investigation. Oh, maybe he discovered a, private residence. Maybe a private residence where a certain short-haired Toko ended up being brutally killed at. I don't know, just saying. At first I was going to call him, but ultimately I decided it'd be better to go down to his apartment in person. I took the train to Yotsuya, then rode the Metropolitan Electric Railway all the way down to Sakuradamon. However, just as I was about to enter the MPD, Uzomi emerged from a squad car parked in front of the building.
お前を探していたんだよ。
そうか。立ち話もなんだ。中へ入るぞ。ついさっき水原塔子の家に行ってきた。お前が勝手に先走っていたみたいだがな。
Uzomi kicked up a stink as he stuck a cigarette between his lips.
なあ、その点は謝る。
何か見つけたのか？
証拠になるかどうかはわからんが、塔子は桂木真の小説を読んでいたようだ。
桂木？ああ、こないだのやつか。しかしそんな読んでいたってだけじゃ本当に何の証拠にもならねえぞ。
Real quick to interrupt. I've said this before, but it seems pretty fucking coincidental, right? I mean, like, so, okay, let me get my thoughts here. So, obviously, when Suzuriko died, I found it peculiar that, for one, we happened to run into Shin Katsuragi, like, a couple of days before, and he claimed to just be, oh, I'm just breaking the routine, being here. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, buddy. And then it was also the thing that Suzuriko was last seen talking with this man clad in black and like walking along with him. And it's like, Suzuriko's not dumb. If there's anybody in the world that she would just get so friendly with and chatty with and even walk away with, it would have been him, of all people, because it was established like immediately beforehand that she was a huge Shin Katsuragi fan. And then obviously now with Toko Mizuhara, it's like, again, the fact that she already really hates men, hates everybody just in general except Toko, and then she happens to have even disregarding the magazine, she happens to have a picture of him. It would kind of seem to me like, okay, if there's anybody that would be able to lure her into their house, it would be this renowned author, because what would you have to fear from a fucking celebrity? I mean, like, you know, in the case of this, in the context of this world, in real life, absolutely fucking everything. You have a lot to be afraid of from celebrities. But we're not going to get into that. So, he is very closely fucking connected with both of these girls in both of these cases. So, I think the game's at a point now where it's not even trying to hide it. It's really just, like, it makes me curious because I think the game is at a point now where it's blatantly telling you it's Shin Katsuragi, right? But I wonder if it's going to be like, okay, like, hey, it's this guy, now you have to try and pin him down, or if it's going to be like, oh, it's this guy, but we're going to, we're going to do some kind of redirection to make you think, oh, wait, but actually no way it could be Katsuragi, it's just a coincidence, and then, throw you off his trail again. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm really curious, though, because there's 3 games in the series. I mean, what are the other games going to be about? But, whatever. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. We're wasting time.
分かってる。何でもいいんだ。以前奴について調べたことで気になっているものなどはないか？
んなこと言われてもな。調べたことと言ったら住所と本名くらいだぞ。
Here we go.
本名？あいつ偽名だったのか？
偽名というよりは筆名だな。本名は か。
What?
ああ、これだ。間宮真司。
Shinji? What?
間宮
Yeah, any relation?
間宮心臓と何か関係があるのか？
取り寄せた資料によると、父親の名前が心臓のようだな。どっかで聞いた覚えのある名前だが。
Wow. Bombshell. Bombshell. So Shin Katsuragi is actually Shinji Mamiya, who is presumably the son of Shinzo Mamiya. And Shinzo Mamiya is the presumed father of Toko. Or hell, maybe even Toko's the daughter of Shinji. I'm not too convinced on that. But they're fucking related. What the fuck?
前に頼んだだろう。京子が好きな画家だって。
そうだったか。
It was quite a surprise to hear those two were father and son. Maybe Saiki knew something about that.
すまないな、大住。
その桂木ってやつが怪しいのか？
まだ何とも言えないな。もう少し様々な可能性を考えてみるが、一応いつでも動けるようにしておいてくれ。
わかった。
And with that, I decided to pay Obergirl's Academy a visit. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I took the train and reached Obergirl's Academy just before sundown.
佐伯教頭。
Saiki was still in the staff room, just as I'd hoped.
ああ、時坂さん。
A weary Saiki ambled over to me.
今しがた警察から連絡がありまして、先ほど発見されたという遺体が水原さんだったと。
You know, I gotta feel bad for Saiki. He's had, what? He had, let me open my notes. I gotta remember the names. But I mean, what? He had, where are they? So, Yui Nishizono died. Haruka Imamura died. Then, let's see, Orihime died. Now, you know, Mizuhara's died. Suzuriko died. Let's see, who else? I mean, that's five of his students that have been murdered, brutally murdered and dismembered. Like, he's gotta be feeling like, holy shit, what do I do? I'm honestly surprised the school hasn't just, like, I don't know, shut down or something. Because, like, hey, 5 of your students have been kidnapped and brutally killed. I mean, I feel like, you know, you'd be like, all right, guys, let's just do, like, let's do something else here.
え
なぜこうも事件が続くのでしょうか。
え、もう終わらせましょう。佐伯教頭、お聞かせ願いたいことが一つあります。間宮心臓について。
彼が犯人なのですか？まさか。
いえ、彼の息子真司氏が今のところ重要な手がかりを有している可能性がありまして、まだそうと決まったわけではないのですが。
Shinji is the killer.
息子さんですか？
ええ、桂木真という筆名で小説を発表しています。先月の事件でも一時期捜査線上に浮かんでいました。
ああ、思い出しました。お役に立つ情報か分かりませんが、新宿の下落合に息子さんのメインになっている間宮心臓のアトリエがあるはずです。
アトリ
エ？ええ、税金対策か何かで生まれたばかりの息子さんの名義にして建築したとか。
That's crazy. Yeah, I'm gonna build a house under my fucking newly born son's name.
ほとんど使われていないようだと昔の知り合いが言っていたような。
下落合ですか。
Now that was quite the intriguing find. Maybe it was worth looking into.
詳しい住所は分かりますか？
ええ、確か下落合の。
I jotted down the address Saiki gave me.
ありがとうございます、教頭。
God, I really hope. For one, I hope that we are close to catching this motherfucker. Because this is starting to hit way too close to home. I mean, Suzuriko was already a blow to the fucking gut. I'm not here to say I care too much about Mizuhara, but I mean, still, that was close to home, right? So it's like, who's next? Like, dare I say Yukari? Right? I'm getting scared, bro. Especially because she was targeted in the last ending that we got. Technically, the first ending that we got, but.
複雑なものですね。犯人が早く逮捕されれば良いと思いますが、それが知人の息子であるとしたら。
まだそうと決まったわけではありませんよ。
Oh, it's him. It's him.
時坂さん、どうか真実を見つけてください。
Trust me. I've pieces all together.
もちろんです。
Night had fallen by the time I got home.
おかえりなさい、兄さん。
Oh, my poor Yukari. Come here, let me give you a hug.
ただいま、ゆかり。大丈夫か？
Her face looked ghastly.
いえ、私は大丈夫です。今、兄さんに心配をかけるわけにはいきませんから。水原さんのことでしたら聞いています。
そうか。
先ほど高城さんからお電話がありました。折り返し連絡してほしいとおっしゃっていました。
高城から？わかった。
Maybe he discovered something. I picked up the phone and dialed Takashiro's agency.
こちら高城探偵事務所でございます。
A chipper voice resounded through the receiver.
カズナさんですか？夜分に恐れ入ります。時坂です。
ああ、どうもこんばんは、時坂さん。どうしたんですか、こんな時間に。
週吾のやつはいますか？
はい、ちょっと待ってくださいね。週吾さん、時坂さん。
I love Kazuna. Her voice was so animated that I had to pull the receiver away from my ear.
ああ、もしもし、時坂か。
ああ、俺だ。何か分かったことでもあったのか？
ああ、4月5日の夜に吉祥寺で黒っぽい格好をした人物の目撃情報が出たぞ。
本当か？
Finally, we're getting somewhere.
全身黒ずくめというほどではないそうだが、遠目から見た限りでは女のようだったらしいぞ。
女だって？
はっきりと確認したわけではないらしいけどな。
そりゃまた随分と曖昧だな。
仕方ないだろう。もう1週間も前のことだからな。
ありがとうよ、高城。
何ってことよ。また何かあったら呼んでくれ。
Ah, excuse me. And with that, I hung up the phone. A woman in black, huh?
兄さん、この雑誌。
どうした？
Yukari was looking at the magazine I'd left on the table.
どうして兄さんがこれを持っているんですか？
それは水原さんの部屋にあったものだ。
Oh, Yukari, you know something?
水原さんが？兄さん、中を見てもよろしいですか？
ああ、指紋の類は心配しなくてもいいぞ。
Though I hadn't checked it for any, I knew it would be pointless considering how many sets of hands it passed through from printing house to consumer. Despite that, Yukari took care as she flipped through it.
これ、文芸小説の5月号ですね。
おう、新しいんだろ？まだ4月だからな。
It was typical for monthly publications to be released a month ahead.
少々お待ちください。
Oh? Yukari got up and walked over to the hallway. What's she doing? Before long, she returned, carrying a similar magazine with her.
こちら、文芸小説の4月号です。
Oh?
お前も買っていたのか？
ええ、綴り子の小説が掲載されていましたから。
Yukari turned the pages. In it was Suzuriko's novel, The Everlasting Pearl.
この雑誌、毎月13日が発売日なんです。
13日？
I looked at the calendar. Today was April 12th.
明日。
ええ、1日くらいでしたら早売りの書店もあるかもしれませんが。
トウコがいなくなったのは昨日だ。
そうです。それに裏表紙を見ましたか？
裏？
I flipped through the magazine's May issue. On the back, I found the word sample stamped in red.
見本？
Ah.
おそらく書店で購入したものではないのでしょう。
そうか。
Maybe, just maybe the pieces were slowly falling into place. Well, again, keep in mind, she's pretty much stole it from her mother. Wow. Holy... God, we're what? We're like 20 minutes into the episode. Exactly 20 minutes into the episode. and holy shit, so much information. I went back to my room and lit a cigarette. Also, I'd like to say, if anybody's going to look like a woman when clad in all black, it's going to be Shin Katsuragi, the little fucking twink, okay? It was time for me to go over everything I knew and plan my next move. Okay, we're going to save here. Just in case. I did ask you guys if there was a way to do the deduction section last time. I admittedly have not looked at the comments yet, if there are any. But I went through virtually every single option, so I'm gonna assume there wasn't. I just don't know why they would offer it up. But maybe it's one of those things where when you play through it again, it'll give you an extra option or something. Anyway, if I combine the stuffed egg killings and the dismemberment murders, then there have been 4 murders so far. The only question was, were they truly committed by the same culprit? Yeah, no. If so, then what evidence most aptly pointed to that conclusion? It had to be something found at the scene of the crimes. How only the victim's limbs were disposed of. That's what I would think. Did all this really add up? I can always think things through again if not. It adds up. Moving on then. Who is the killer? No, the most likely suspect so far. I limit it to just one for now. Any more than that would simply muddle matters. I wonder who we're going to pick. Shinji Mamiya. He did smell fishy, but did I have any proof to back up my claims? I flipped through my notebook to search for more evidence. Yeah, actually, we do. We have a lot more stuff now. I don't know, maybe this? The photo of Shin Kazuragi. That was to say Shinji Mamiya that I'd found in Toko's room. Based on everything I knew, it didn't make sense that she'd have it. Had the two of them met somewhere? Or were they close somehow? The fact that she'd had the May issue of Art and Literature was also curious. Didn't her owning an unpublished copy up the odds that they knew each other? There were also Suzuriko's case to consider. She'd been tickled pink to meet him when they crossed paths at Moonworld. Based on that, she probably would have followed him if he'd called her out on the street. Thank you. God, thank you. Plus, according to Takashido, a figure dressed in black was seen in Kichijoji on that day. The witness said they appeared to be a woman, but considering this happened at night, they might have mistaken him for a lady. That just left the question of how he disposed of the bodies. Toko's limbs were probably thrown out of a car. However, the man had once told me he couldn't drive, meaning he likely had an accomplice. This accomplice was the one who moved the bodies after his murders. But if that was true, then where did the killings actually occur? Everything I knew pointed to one particular place. The art studio. Shinzo Mamiya's art studio in Shima Ochiai. The one he'd built under his son's name that supposedly wasn't in use. It sounded like the perfect hideout. I decided I'd call Uezomi tomorrow and get him to help me look into it. Am I cooking? Am I cooking or what? Okay, so that went well. Normally, if you get one of those options wrong, it'll kind of like hard block you. Hold on, let's wait through this. Okay, so like I was saying, what was I saying? I completely fucking forgot.
というわけで、魚住はそっちから直接向かってくれ。場所は下落合の。
Okay, so real quick though, so normally on those deduction sections, I'm pretty sure it will like hard block you if you get it, like if you get it wrong, right? I mean, I guess we'll find out, because it might be one of those things where if you get those answers wrong, it'll lead you to like a bad ending kind of thing. So we'll find out, obviously. But hey, who called it? Oh, that's right. I called it. That's right. Yeah, I remember now. I hung up after I relayed the location in Shimo Ochiai. Everything was set. Maybe now we could finally take real steps towards closing the case. The guy was nothing more than a suspect at this point. However, part of me was sure of his guilt. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken action. I went outside. All I had to do was take the Seibu Shinjuku line and...
Nisa!
Yukari raced out of the house.
どうしたゆかりちょっと出かけてくるだけだぞ
兄さん、お気をつけていってらっしゃいませ。
Yukari, you stay safe. If I lost you, I wouldn't, again, I've said it before, if Yukari dies, I'm not fucking playing this game series anymore. And I'm holding true to that promise, alright?
ああ分かってるさ
She said that, but Yukari's countenance only clouded further with anxiety, so I ruffled her hair before heading to the train station. Well, look at what we have here. The white building was located in a field the size of a small park past a labyrinth of houses. It sure as hell didn't look like the run-of-the-mill house, that was for sure. Then again, it was only natural for Shinzo Mamiya's studio.
Oh, 遅かったな
Uzomi was already there.
パトカーじゃなかったのか
I hadn't seen anything of the sort parked on the path here anyway.
令状もなしの捜査だからな表だっては動けねえよ
取ってないのか
当たり前だお前が怪しいって言っているだけなんだからな
そうなると
Well, I mean, we can go in.
ま、そうなるな任意で話を聞くってことくらいしかできねえぞもっとも人がいるようには思えねえんだが
Uzomi looked up at the building. The place did indeed feel as desolate as a
だ
mausoleum.
が人の出入りはあるようだぞ新しい足跡が残っている
I crouched down and pointed at the ground by the front door.
女がいるな
A woman's. Or a teenage girl's? Uzomi indicated a different, smaller trail of footprints.
少なくとも2人これが被害者のものでないとするならばな
被害者だったら出てくる足跡は残っていないだろうこいつは何度も往復した跡がある
共犯あるいは協力者がいるのか
ここにいたやつが犯人ならなそれはまだ決まったわけじゃないんだが
Uzomi approached the building.
んおいレイジこの匂い
I walked toward the studio and followed suit, sniffing like a bloodhound. A faint reek of what smelled like spoiled milk dominated the air.
刺繍か
行くぞレイジ
Uzomi grabbed the doorknob.
行くっておい令状もないんだろ
今は緊急時だ
He body slammed the door with the build and force of a wild boar. I could have sworn the whole house shook like there'd been an earthquake.
くそもう一度
The door flew off its hinges.
行くぞ
Uzomi lunged inside. I was hot on his heels. Jesus Christ. I covered my mouth the moment I stepped inside. The stench of death permeated the air like miasma. It stung the very depths of my throat, and slithered its way to the backs of my eyeballs.
おい魚住
見ろよレイジ
Uzomi pointed toward the window. The sunlight illuminated a table painted liberally with crimson like some perverse pastiche of a ray from the heavens.
絵の具ではないよな
I looked at a row of paintings.
冗談言ってる場合かまったく大当たりじゃねえか
Uzomi scowled.
ノコギリだな
The tool in question had been carelessly abandoned on the floor. Though the edge gleamed, the handle was caked in blood and chunks of flesh. Even more of the like decorated the floors here and there as if to create some sort of macabre art pattern.
奥にも部屋があるようだぜあっちの方が嫌な予感がしやがる
奥か
Uzomi was right. The reek of rot positively radiated from that room. What's more, There hadn't been any bodies in here. Meaning,
行くか。
there was no turning back now. I gripped the doorknob standing between us in that room and opened up. Who is it? What is it? Who is it? What is it? The subsequent fetor of decay pierced my brain like a spear, forcing me to pinch my nose. What in the... What the fuck? The walls were lined with 4 objects dark. Female torsos were cows in containers modeled after eggshells. Their bodies appeared to be coated in plaster or clay. Oh fuck. I gulped, took a step closer and carefully scanned the room.
レイジ。
分かってる。
All 4 girls were missing their limbs. Every last one of them had similar faces. However, there was one that still appeared to be a work in progress. Her face wasn't smeared in clay. Oh fuck, dude. Toko Mizuhara's face hardly exhibited any signs of decay. The way her eyes were shut and her head was hung almost made it appear as though she was only sleeping.
一旦出るぞ、レイジ。ここにいると俺たちまでおかしくなっちまう。
ああ。
I nodded and surveyed the other complete girls. The one on the far right's wig had carelessly slipped off, exposing familiar unkempt hair.
見つけるのが遅くなってすまなかったな。
Jesus Christ. I left the room at Uzumi's urging after delivering that final apology.
応援を頼んでくる。お前はここにいてくれ。
Uzomi broke out into a dash once he'd said his piece. He was competently carrying out his duties despite the grotesque nightmare we just witnessed. In the meantime, I took out a cigarette and lit it. I wanted to drive away the stench of decay that held fast to my throat and nostrils as quickly as possible. Uzomi returned not too long after.
もうじきここに退去して押しかけてくるそうだ。
Uzomi sank his teeth into a cigarette of his own.
何か言っていたか。
ああ？知るかよ。
Uzomi turned away with a glower. They must have really let him have it. It's probably chewed him out for being a maverick.
間宮真司の逮捕状は？
まだだ。もっと調べて容疑が固まってからだろうさ。
Ooh, wow, that was fucked up.
ちんたらやってると逃げられるぞ。
特攻のようにはできねえよ。だから俺がここまで来たんじゃねえか。
旗から見りゃ特攻よりもタチが悪いぞ。
I gestured to the door he'd so kindly rammed down minutes ago.
まあ、謹慎は免れねえわな。
悪かったよ。無茶させちまって。
なに、被疑者を確定するにはこれくらいのことはしねえとな。来たようだな。
Uzomi stubbed out his cigarette. I could see numerous cops racing their way down the narrow path to the studio.
八木沼管理官も来たのか。
Sure was odd seeing him at the forefront of the troops. Yaginuma slugged Uzomi square in the face the second he ran over.
貴様、勝手なことをして統率を乱すなと言っただろう。
は。
Uzomi stood at attention.
何か起こってからじゃ遅いんだ。分かっているのか。自分が組織の中の駒でしかないことを自覚しろ。いいな。
Yeah, buddy. Who the fuck was it that found out who the guy was and then found his base of operations and all the fucking missing bodies? Oh, that's right. It was us, not you, motherfucker.
は、了解であります。管理官殿。
Yaginuma snorted, turned around and began issuing orders to the forensics officers and investigators who'd arrived with him.
組織を束ねる者としては適当な判断。
今の警察はそういう組織だよ。
Uzomi didn't sound very displeased about the fact.
だからお前や高城みたいなのがあぶれるんだ。周りに合わせるということをしないやつがな。
肌に合わないんだよ、そういうのが。そう。お前、顎は大丈夫なのか？ずいぶん景気のいい音がしたが。
あんな拳当たったうちに入らねえよ。さて、仕事をするか。
Uzomi headed back into the studio. By the time I returned to that dingy room, the forensics officers were already collecting evidence. It felt like I'd only get in their way if I stuck around. Plus, Yaginuma was acting like I wasn't even there.
Oh yeah, 時作班やりまへんか。
Natsume entered the studio.
珍しいですね。夏目さんが現場に来るなんて。
うちから近くでしたからな。ちょいと足を伸ばしてみましたわ。おいで、見つけたんは時作班ですか？
ええ。この奥です。
I indicated the room with the bodies.
はい、じゃちょいと見てきますかね。
Natsume and I went in together.
おやま、こりゃひどいですな。
Not even Natsume could help but be astonished by the room.
エロ悪趣味ですわ。これまで陽家仏さんは見てきましたけど、粉決体なのは初めてですわ。
She approached the corpses that had been transformed into works of art.
こりゃ紙粘土っすな。中の水分吸ってぷよぷよになっとります。それにしてももうみんな同じような
Yeah, and you know whose face they have? They have Toko's face.
夏目さんもそう思いますか？
鼻筋とか顎の形とかなんかモチーフになったもんがあるんとちゃいます？
でしょうね。
He probably couldn't have made such a similar looking art otherwise.
ま、詳しくは持ち帰ってからですが、ちょい時間かかるかもしれまへん。
よろしくお願いします、夏目さん。
I left the studio and found Commissioner Yaginuma instructing investigators to form an orderly line.
桂木慎子と間宮真司を最重要参考人として事情聴取する。各自奴の居場所を突き止めるように。
The crime scene was bustling with activity. At least Yaginuma seemed to know what he was doing.
魚住巡査部長は強行犯捜査から外れ、特殊犯捜査へ回れ。分かったな。
Uzomi's punishment was more or less what I'd expected, though it sure beat getting canned. It also meant he'd probably be taken off the case.
Uzumi.
Part of me wanted to look away when Uzomi strutted on over.
どうした？んな景気の悪そうな面しやがって。
悪かったな。
そう何度も謝るんじゃねえよ。あいつの下で働かなくていいんだったら願ったり叶ってるじゃねえか。
He patted me on the back with a hammy laugh and left the scene with a cigarette in his mouth.
ありゃ痩せ我慢してはりますな。
でしょうね。
He'd probably wanted to see this case through to the very end. The same went for me, but things would likely be harder without him around.
今回のはうちで調べるには数が多すぎますし、監察医務員に任せることになるかもしれまへん。ま、うちもそっちへ出張りますけど。
よろしくお願いします。
任せとき。
For now, there was little more that I could do but sit back and see how the police handled things. Well, goddamn! God motherfucking damn! Ayumu Sato had suffered a mild headache that day. Not only did she have a fever, but her body felt heavy as lead. That was why she'd taken the day off school and gone to a hospital not too far from home. Oh, we're Sato now, okay. The waiting room was jam-packed this afternoon. Ayumu sat on a bench in the middle of the room and waited her turn. An old man sitting next to her hacked raspily.
どうぞ。
Ayumu produced a tissue from her bag and handed it to him.
ありがとうございます。
But the man kept thanking her over and over, so Ayumu awkwardly looked away. When she did, she saw the back of someone familiar. Ayumu checked her head in confusion. Seeing them in a hospital wasn't a problem, but the thing they were pushing perplexed her.
結婚はしていないはず。
家にばあさんがおりましてな。
あ、そうではなく。
It seemed the old man had thought she'd been talking to him. Ayumu blushed a little and tried clearing up the misunderstanding. Interesting. Now, why would we get a little excerpt like that from Ayumu Sato? I won't say anything quite yet, but the cogs are turning a little bit. And then it's interesting that they mentioned, for one, like, oh, I saw the back of somebody's head and they seem to be pushing something. Well, it wasn't only that. It was, oh, I saw the back of somebody's head. It's no surprise they were in the hospital. So it's pretty safe to assume that she's talking about somebody who works in the hospital. And then she was like, oh, but then she's pushing somebody. Oh, and married when? Or like married since when? So there's somebody working at the hospital that she seems to have some kind of crush on. Or something like that. We'll see. I heaved a heavy sigh as I sank into my sofa after temporarily retreating to my office. Afterward, I put a cigarette between my lips and searched for a match. Excuse me. But suddenly, the phone shrilly shrieked. Huh? This place almost never gets any calls. Then again, maybe it did, and I simply wasn't aware, since I was out all the time. What? I didn't have a clue what he was getting at. Oh, they kidnapped Toko. That's who she was talking about. Ayumu Sato saw Shin Katsuragi taking Toko away.
なんだって？社長の孫でオーバー女学院に在籍している朽木東子という学生だ。特殊犯捜査に回された途端これだ。
これからすぐに行く。
おい。
I hung up without waiting for Ozomi to finish. Toko's been kidnapped? But she should have been on complete bed rest. Plus doctors were constantly attending to her, so how? Thinking could wait. I had to get there on the double. So much is happening. A squad car was already outside the Kuchiki Pathological Research Institute by the time I finished racing over. However, it had been parked in a place where it wouldn't catch the eyes of patient and staff. I made a beeline for the entrance once I confirmed Uezomi wasn't in his vehicle. Okay, scratch my thing earlier about her having a crush on somebody in the hospital. She probably was looking at maybe Toko, seeing, oh, since when did Toko get married? The central waiting room was full of outpatients. Furthermore, the reception desk was still operating as usual, meaning the staff was probably trying to cover up the kidnapping. Uezomi gestured to me from a corner of the hallway.
Uezomi, 状況は?
せくんじゃねえよ。奥で話すぞ。
He entered a nearby reception room after remonstrating me.
で、何があったんだ?
I urged Uezomi on once I'd ensured no one else was around.
俺もこっちに配属されたばかりでよくわからねえ。朽木東子という重体患者が集中治療室から忽然と姿を消したとしか聞いていない。
東子は一人では動けないほどの怪我を負っていた。だからこそ誘拐だと言ったんだろう。
知っているのか？
ああ。学院にいる時にな。
そうか。
今彼女がどういう状態であるかはわからないが、早く見つけ出さないと命の危険もあるはずだ。
おそらく現場の病室に。おい待て、レジ。
Uezomi grabbed my arm just as I was about to rush through the door.
なんだ？向こうの事件とは何の関わりもねえんだよな。
間宮真司の犯行だとでも言いたいのか？
That'd be insane.
わからん。しかし会社の年頃といい、何か匂わねえか？
それはわからない。ただここには奴の担当医もいる。
そっちも調べる必要があるな。
ああ。じゃあ行くか。
I marched for Toku's room with Uezomi in tow.
失礼します。東京警視庁の魚住です。
I stepped into the room after Uezomi. All staff who had anything to do with Toko's hospital stay were assembled.
おや、時坂先生?
Fumiya shot me a confused look. All right, I must have forgotten to tell him I was a detective.
どうも。
Still, this obviously wasn't the time to get into that. The bed was empty. Numerous tubes that had probably been connected to Toko were strewn across it like strands of pasta. There were no windows in sight, meaning the door was the only way in or out. Several large machines stood on the opposite side of the room. I didn't spot any places where someone could reasonably hide, not even under the bed.
状況を説明していただけますか、朽木所長。
Director Kuchiki nodded and got out of his chair.
この病室には重体だった患者が入院していた。とはいえ、処置は済ませてあるのですぐに生命の危険はない。今から1時間ほど前、午後1時頃か、村瀬君が所用でこの部屋を離れた。
Murase, who's standing next to the director, nodded.
はい。鎮痛剤を患者に投与して様子を見守っていたのですが、外部から電話がありましたので、一旦自室へ戻りました。
その後に彼女がいなくなったと。
おそらくは僕がこの部屋に入った時にはも
う。それはいつ頃ですか？
多分1時を数分も過ぎていないと思います。
Fumiya rolled up his glove a bit and nodded as he checked his watch.
その間この部屋には誰も近づいていない。そうですか。
あ、私がすぐそこの廊下にいました。患者さんとお話ししていて、村瀬先生が出てくるのも見ています。文也さんとも挨拶を交わしました。
朽木さんが来るまでは誰も廊下を通らなかったのですか？
それは何人かは廊下を通ったと思いますが、瞳子さんを連れ出していたらすぐに気づきます。
Meaning we were dealing with the so-called locked room mystery, huh?
怪しい人間は見なかったのか？
Uzomi addressed everyone in present.
怪しい人間とはどのような人を指すのですか？
そりゃお前、とにかく怪しげなやつだよ。
Uzomi stammered.
例えば、草加さんや間宮さんのような方ですかな。
てめえ、なんでそいつらを？
この人は草加や間宮真司を見ていた医師だよ。
どうも時坂さん。先ほど警察から連絡がありましてね。何でも間宮さんが指名手配されたとか。
ええ。最近頻発していた殺人事件の被疑者として彼が浮かび上がっています。
そうでしたか。だいぶ回復されていたのですが、この話は今はよしましょう。
Saido turned back to Uzomi.
刑事さんのおっしゃるような怪しげな人間は今のところ私は見ていませんね。犯罪を行いそうな人間は見ればわかります。
だったらあんたがさっさと見つけてくれ。
Uzomi griped loudly.
まあとにかくおおよその状況はわかりました。これか。
Oh, sorry.
一刻も早く解決してくれ。
Who to ask? Questioning them all sounded like it'd be most prudent, but I had to start somewhere. Let's talk to her first. Koharu.
山之内さんはこちらの部屋の前にいらっしゃったということですが。
はい。今日は外部からの来客も多くて立て込んでいましたが。
来客？それはどういう方たちですか？
小さな診療所や行為の方が健康診断の打ち合わせにいらっしゃるんです。こちらに記録が残っている場合も多いですから。
なるほど。では入院病棟に外来の患者が来ることは可能ですか？
ええ、特に制限はありません。入院患者さんのご家族なども見えられますし、人の行き来は自由です。
そうですか。ありがとうございます。斉藤先生は1時頃どちらにいらっしゃったのですか？
自室で書類の整理をしていましたよ。実は村瀬先生の電話を取り継いだのも私でしてね。
そうなんですか？
ああ、斉藤先生がここへ呼びに来て部屋に戻ったんだ。
どなたからのお電話だったんですか？
それは捜査に関係あるのか？誰からだって構わないだろ
う。いえ、ですが
よそのお医者さんでしたよ。お話の内容まではさすがに知りませんが。
そうでしたか。申し訳ありません。
So fucking uncooperative. I hate Murase so much.
朽木所長、あなたは午後1時頃どちらにいらっしゃいましたか？
私を疑っているのかね。
Yatsuda shot me a chilling glare.
いえ、そういうわけではありません。関係者の行動を把握することも重要なのです。
私は昼過ぎからずっと所長室にいたぞ。 残念ながらそれを証明してくれる人間はおらんがね。
そうですか。ありがとうございます。村瀬さん、あなたがここを離れる前の患者の様子はどうでしたか？
いつもと変わらんよ。体力の消耗を防ぐために麻酔を打っていたが。
つまり連れ出される時に暴れたりはされないわけですね。
そうなるな。しかし麻酔があろうとなかろうと暴れられはしない。
それはどういう意味ですか？
麻酔はあくまで体力の消耗を防ぐためのものだ。そもそも患者は全身を骨折していた。暴れることなどできはしない。
なるほど。しかし麻酔がなければ声を出すことくらいはできたのではないですか？
だろうな。だからといってそれを今論じても意味のないことじゃないのか？
そうですね。
Lastly, Fumiya.
朽木さん、あなたがこの部屋に入った時にはすでに患者はいなくなっていたのですね。
ええ、ベッドはすでにもぬけの殻でした。結局僕は術後のトウコちゃんには一度も会っていないんです。
それはどういうことですか？
トウコちゃんはずっと面会謝絶でして、父と村瀬医師しかこの病室に出入りしていなかったんです。ですから彼女の容体もあまり分からずに。
ですがあなたは彼女を見ていたんですよね。
僕は外科医ではありませんから。
Fumiya hid his gloved hand behind his back.
ではなぜ今日に限って病室の中へ入ったんですか？
それは村瀬医師が病室から出ていくのを見てつい。
Fumiya hung his head.
父からもトウコちゃんの容体についてはあまり聞かされていませんでしたから、どんな状態なのかと思いまして。
なるほど。ありがとうございました。
I'd probably gotten everything I could out of them.
何か分かったか？
Uzomi finally broke his silence.
そうだな。もう少しなんだが。
Oops. I studied Toko's bed once more. Sheets were neatly laid out atop it with the folds still intact.
このシーツはいつ取り替えたのですか？
I turned around and asked Dr. Kuchiki that question.
シーツ？毎日交換することになっているが。
お昼前に理念回収を担当している看護婦さんが台車で各部屋を回っていましたよ。
その時にこちらの部屋のも交換されたのですか？
ああ、シーツと布団、枕も交換していたな。
なるほど。理念室はどちらですか？
廊下の先ですが、何かあるのですか？
そうですね。案内していただけますか？
ええ、こちらです。
Koharu led me out into the hallway.
この先なのですが。
あ、時坂
Let's
先生。
go. I turned around upon hearing a familiar voice call out to me.
おや、佐藤さん。こんなところでどうしたんだい？
どうも風邪をひいたようで来たのですけど、先生こそどうなさったんですか？
俺はちょっと調べることがあってね。
赤崎先生のことですか？
なぜ彼女の名前が出てくるんだい？
先ほど正午過ぎに待合室の方で見かけたものですから。そうだ、赤崎先生は結婚されていませんよね？
結婚しているという話は聞いていないな。でもどうして？
ええ、赤崎先生が大きな乳母車を押しているように見えたので、もしかしたら他人の空似かもしれませんが。
乳母車？
Why would she have something like that?
たく、何が起こってるんだよ。
魚住、ちょっと今から調べてきてほしいところがあるんだが。
Hold up, let me... Where is Akazaki? No fucking way is Nene Akazaki the accomplice to Shinzo Mamiya. Now keep in mind, what? No way, right? Theory. What if, I mean, like, it would only make sense to me, like, so, God, I'm trying to regain my thoughts. Ayumu's asking us, oh, she's not married, is she? So that would insinuate either one, she was with a man that looked like they was married to her, or she had a ring. More than likely, she had a ring on her finger. The stroller that she pushed, at this point, I think we can obviously guess, would have been carrying Toko in it. Or something of the sort. Or, so it's either that, or it's like, or maybe they saw her pushing like an actual stroller, like a baby child stroller. And that's what made her think, oh, Dr. Akizaki pushing a baby stroller, so it must be a kid. It must be her kid. If she has a kid, she must have a significant other. At her age, probably a husband. Right? So maybe she mistook the stroller for being like a child stroller. Maybe she saw her pushing Toko in like an actual, something more like a wheelchair kind of thing. Although if it was a wheelchair, they would have described it like that, but they described it as a stroller. So maybe she had Toko in the stroller somehow. And so that ended up being, and so then she mistook it as like a child in the stroller or something. Interesting. Okay, Nene. The fucking, oh, okay. I see. I see what kind of game you're playing at here. It's save real quick, cause what? I mean, it'd probably be the linen room, right? Let's just see what kind of options they lead us to.
使用済みの手術に何か紛れていないか調べてくれないか。
理念室だな。わかった。
Uzomi ran down the hallway.
何か分かったのですか？
ええ。おそらく自分の勘が外れていなければこれで決まりでしょう。
へえ。先生の探偵らしいところ初めて見ました。
Ouch. I knew she was trying to compliment me, but that hurt. Uzomi returned before long.
どうだった？
レジ、こんなのが出てきたぞ。
Uzomi tossed some clothes at me.
あら、これは看護婦の。
So I see how it was. So Nene dressed up as a nurse, snuck into the hospital room, took Toko away, likely under the guise of taking the linens, and then took her, then kidnapped her.
車輪付きのでかいカゴにシーツやなんやらと一緒に置かれていたぞ。
あらあら、制服はきちんと別で洗濯しないといけないのに。
Koharu's comment was more on the mark than she realized.
よし、これでほぼ決まりだ。行くぞ、大泉。とっとと片付けて、トーコを探しに行こう。おう。
And with that, I brought Uzomi and Koharu back to Toko's room.
皆さん、お待たせいたしました。
患者の行方も大切だが、我々にも仕事があるんだ。
ええ、大体のところは。
I nodded, as I stopped in front of the most suspicious individual in the room. Oh, what? What? We have to pin one of these guys? Oh my god, okay. So, God, whoa. I don't know. I actually don't know. Okay, so let's relive events. Fumiya seems to have, to some degree, I mean, obviously he wanted to see Toko, and at least from his story, it seemed like he waited until Murase left the room in order to try and sneak in there to see her again, at which point he noticed she was gone. Koharu seemed to have been staying primarily around the waiting room and saw both Murase leave and saw Fumiya there as well, I believe, right? Something like that. Yasutada claims to have been in his office the entire time. But he was the one who came, but he did say that he came to fetch. Wait, no, was it him? No, it wasn't him. Oh my god, I'm getting my fucking... No, because wasn't it? I believe it was actually Saito who took the call from Murase, went to fetch Murase, which prompted Murase to leave. He claims that he was gone the entire time. I'm just gonna... I already saved, right? Let me save. And I'm just gonna hot dog this. I'm just gonna wing it. Koharu!
なんでしょう。
山之内さん、あなたは唯一犯行可能と思われる時間、そばにいました。村瀬先生が席を外し、文也さんが来るまでのわずかな時間です。
ですが。
ああ、思い出したぜ。山之内小春。
What the fuck?
英治殺しで逮捕されていたな。
それは。
Koharu's face went white as a sheet.
犯行時に心神喪失状態にあったとして不起訴処分になったはずだが。
Okay, Uzomi, you dropping bombs on us.
その話は今は関係ないと思われますよ。
Saito interrupted Uzomi's tirade.
私は彼女の担当医ではありませんが、少なくとも今ここで働いている彼女はそういった過去とは関係ありませんよ。
しかし、
やめろ、魚住。今は関係ないことだ。
Okay, bombshell? I stopped to Uzomi and bowed low to Koharu.
山之内さん、大変申し訳ありませんでした。
いえ、昔のことは本当ですし、隠すつもりもありませんから。
申し訳ありません。
So it wasn't her. Okay. That's interesting. I'm gonna reload just because I like to have a perfect record, okay? So, Koharu murdered her baby 10 years ago. Awesome. So, clearly, I'm trying to piece it together. Nene snuck in under the guise of a nurse to kidnap Toko in the linen stroller, or the linen bin, something like that, something along those lines. We know that Koharu greeted both Fumiya and Murase. Let's try Fumiya then, right? I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I have no... as of right now, I'm not coming up with any suspicions about any of these characters.
何でしょうか。
文也さん、初めて会った時からずっと気にはなっていたのですが。
I did notice he tucked the glove behind his hand.
これは今は関係ないことだと思いますが。
かもしれません。ですが、よろしければ聞かせていただけませんか。
わかりました。
Fumiya quietly took the glove off. His unveiled right hand was missing the end of its middle finger, right finger, and pinky.
それは
若い頃に怪我をしましてね。おかげでメスも握れず、免疫学を学ぶことにしたんです。もうよろしいですか。
ええ、申し訳ありませんでした。
We're just uncovering all these memories, aren't we? I'm reload, because you know how I do. So Fumiya lost, like, the tips of 3 of his fingers in an accident. Koharu killed her fucking baby 10 years ago. Who's next? Let's do Saito.
どうされましたか。
斉藤先生、村瀬先生への電話を取り継いだとおっしゃっていましたね。 どなたからかかってきたものだったのですか？
おい、それはさっきも聞いただろう。
Murase cut in.
重要なことですよ。電話をかけた場合に名乗るのは常識ですからね。斉藤先生でしたら覚えていると思いますが。
Now, I do see how maybe this could be it, like, you know, Saito called Murase. I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking of originally, right? Like, Saito said, hey, Murase, there's a phone call for you, which drew Murase away from the room, which allowed Nene to come in and kidnap her.
ええ、オーバー女学院の
赤崎
と名乗っていましたよ。女性の方です。
ありがとうございます。
So then we talked to Murase about what the fuck they were talking about.
なんだ？
先ほど自分の知り合いが外来の待合室で乳母車を押す女性を見かけたそうです。
それがどうした？
そう焦らないでください。その方が目撃されたのは正午過ぎのことらしいです。
だからどうしたと聞いているだろ
う。Murase stomped on the floor, clearly fuming.
ところで、理念回収の台車がここに来たのは何時と言っていましたか？
昼前だ。
Murase's irritation gave way to confusion at the sudden change in topic.
ああ、そうでした。理念室でその台車と一緒にこんなものが置いてあったんですよ。
Uzomi showed the nurse uniform he'd found at my behest.
そんなものが理念室に置いてあるのは当たり前だろ。
そうではないのですよ。先ほどこの制服を見つけたとき、山之内先生は制服は別で選択するとおっしゃいました。
ええ、更衣室には専用の回収箱もありますから、理念室で着替えるなんてことはしません。
そうです。なぜそこに制服だけが放置されていたのか。外部から何者かが潜入し、看護婦の格好をしていたとしたら。
バカバカしい。そんなことをしたって部外者かどうかは見ればわかるだろ
う。では山之内先生、その理念を回収していた看護婦に見覚えはありましたか？
え？そういえば顔を見ていません。特に気にしていなかったので、理念を回収しているとしか。
That's still crazy. Nene was the accomplice, isn't? Okay, so that brings us to this. There were 3 fucking killers. There was Kusaka, who was basically just there as the scapegoat fall man. And then there was the Nene and Shinji pair, who were the actual, like, culprit / mastermind behind all of this.
その看護婦が意図的に顔を背けていたという可能性はありませんか？
顔を背けて仕事中だと思いました。カゴの中を覗き込んでいたような。でもなぜですか？
山之内先生と顔見知りだったのでしょう。だから看護婦の格好をしていてはおかしい。それで顔を隠した。
私の顔見知
り。Koharu gasped. She'd probably realize exactly who I was alluding to.
その看護婦に化けた女性は村瀬先生がいらっしゃる時にここへ来ました。今先生は部外者かどうかは見ればわかると言いましたね。
Murase reluctantly nodded. It looked like he was really losing his cool. Checkmate was nigh.
看護婦の正体は今はいいでしょう。重要なのは患者朽木東子さんがどのようにしてここからいなくなったかです。
I pointed to the clean sheets on the bed.
シーツは新品同様で誰かが寝ていたようには見えません。つまり理念回収の際に古いシーツを持っていった。そしてその時病室にいたのは村瀬さん、あなただけです。
Oh shit.
何をバカなこと。俺が電話でここを離れるまで。
Murase pounded his fist into the wall with rage.
では村瀬さんを呼びに来た斉藤先生は患者さんを確認していますか？
いや、ノックをして電話が来ていると伝えただけですよ。私もここへの立ち入りを禁じられているのでね。
ありがとうございます。さて、そろそろ時間もありませんし、締めましょうか。
There was no doubt in my mind that Murase had played a part in Toko's kidnapping. Thus, all that remained was to name his accomplice. It's probably... Well, I mean, we all know who it was. It was fucking Nene.
その人は外来の待合室で大きな乳母車を押しているのを目撃されています。
There were still some parts that didn't entirely add up, but I was sure that was how it had gone down.
魚住、付近に緊急配備を頼む。おそらくさっきの学生、佐藤さんもいるだろうから、容姿などは彼女から詳しく聞いてくれ。
おう。
Uzomi left the room. All that was left was to make this man confess.
先ほどお電話があったと言っていたじゃないですか。おそらく彼女がここを抜け出した後にかけたのでしょうね。もう少し留守の時間が長くなればよかったのでしょうが、あいにくすぐにフミヤさんが患者の不在を見つけてしまう。
Wait, Murase, okay. So Murase and Nene were in on this kidnapping.
そろそろ認めてはいかがですか？
赤崎は大学の時の後輩だ。
Murase slumped into a chair.
やっと認めていただけましたね。
Uncovering his motive was all that remained. He would probably cough it up fairly easy though, since he'd been caught red-handed. Murase held his tongue even after he was brought to another room. Director Kuchiki and the other doctors went back to work. One of the other police officers left the hospital to follow Uzomi. Toko would probably be back in safe hands before long. That said, there were still several loose ends concerning Murase's actions, but I planned to get them out of him right away.
なぜこのようなことをしたのですか？
I sat across from Murase and spoke up.
決まっているだろう。金だよ。
Murase divulged his motives in a subdued voice.
金。身代金目的の誘拐か？
あの女は金のなる木だ。あちこちから金をぶんどれる。
No way, that's...
そう思った。
Yeah, but... Listen, I'm not gonna claim that we know Nene well enough for her to be a saint, but to pull off something as risky as this, to kidnap a girl from her fucking hospital room? There's more to the story than that. No way it's just that cut and dry. Oh, we did it for money. Okay.
あちこちから。確かに口利けは資産もあるようだが。
Yasutada Kujiki owned this very hospital, but that was it.
5日ほど前、ここに弁護士が来た。所長を訪ねてきたらしいんだが、俺が対応した。俺だって諏訪に出かけなきゃならなかったんだが。
Suwa. So this happened on the 8th then.
出かける前に聞いちまったんだよ。あの女が中原慎次郎の孫娘かもしれねえって。
中原慎次郎？
Yeah, who the fuck is that?
誰だ？
岡山の実業家さ。紡績業で財を成し、孤児院や病院、果ては電力会社、銀行まで作った大物だ。
中原美術館。
Wasn't that the museum I visited with Toko last month? So the owner was her biological grandfather? She didn't go there knowing that, did she?
その弁護士が言うには、母親と瓜二つだそうだぜ。まあ、その女もふらりといなくなったそうだが。
Well, if we're to take him at his word, it would kind of make sense. Nakahara. So it'd be like this, right? Nakahara had presumably a daughter, Toko's mother. Toko's mother was a model for Shinzo Mamiya, and her and Shinzo Mamiya ended up having a kid together. I don't know if they were married or not. We don't know exactly what happened to Toko's mother, but so then they had Toko, the war happened, and Toko got separated from them and was then adopted by the Kuchikis. So it all kind of sort of plays out like that if we're to take him at his word. I never imagined I'd learn something about Toko in this manner.
つまりまあ、そういうことさ。あの女をかっさらってしまえば、口利けと中原家両方から身代金を取れる。
Murase was spilling all the beans. Maybe he'd realized it was best to just go all in now that he'd been caught. Good thing none of the Kuchikis were around to hear this.
それで 後から赤崎さんに身代金要求の電話を入れさせるのですか？
そうさ。俺が署内にいる時だったら俺の犯行だとは思われねえだろ。
ですがそれは失敗に終わった。もう彼女の身柄も拘束されている頃でしょう。
So maybe these guys have nothing to do with the killings. Maybe this might be a completely separate entity. I sent the cop keeping watch a nod and then rose to my feet.
自分は朽木東子さんの保護へ向かいます。村瀬さん、あとは警察署でお話ししてあげてください。
The cop took Murase away. An ordinary detective like me normally wouldn't have the right to interrogate a suspect, but apparently that cop had mistaken me for a plainclothes police inspector. Probably because I was with Uezomi, honestly. I'd gotten most of the story out of Murase. The rest of the details would probably fall into place soon enough. I left the reception room and found Uezomi dashing my way from the exit. Oh fuck, what now?
どうした？
村瀬のアパートで赤崎ねねが殺されている。
What the fuck?
何？
What was the meaning of this?
それに朽木東子の姿もなかった。
What is happening? What is happening? Why was Nene involved in this? How does Nene know Murase? Okay, we were college students together. So you were college students together. I never got the impression from Nene that she wanted to kidnap one of her own students and hold her for ransom. And now she's just dead? What is happening? Wait, what the hell is he saying? Well, clearly fucking Shinji got to him. Got to her.
とにかく来てくれ。すぐ近くだ。
I raced after Uezomi. Murase's apartment was in Nogara, just a short drive away from the Kichiki Pathological Research Institute. This area had been an air raid target during the war since the Imperial Japanese Army Nakano School was nearby, yet a considerably ramshackle building had escaped all that and still stood tall in the neighborhood.
こっちだ。
A choking stench of blood engulfed the room, decked out in Western furniture. Nene Akazaki, or something that resembled her anyway, sat in a chair positioned near the center. Jesus. In that void of the macabre, her face had been carved up by a myriad of slashes, rendering her nigh unrecognizable. It almost looked as though her face had been thrown into a shredder.
調べるか。
I mean, I'm still... Why would Nene... I'm still confused as to why she would do that. Okay, Murase does it for money. Cool. Nene does it for money? I mean, this seems... You know... this seems just kind of out of the blue. Specifically for her character. It's not like we've had a whole shit ton of interactions with her or anything. But there's been nothing that would have suggested that she's like... that she would be willing to kidnap a critical condition hospital patient who's her student and try and hold her for ransom. I mean... Jesus Christ. The table was splattered with blood, probably from when the killer had mutilated Akazaki's face. I still can't get over how brutal the whole thing appeared. Whatever had driven the murderer, it seemed borderline pathological. You can kind of see it from here, but there's a marking on her neck. So they probably strangled her first and then slashed her face up afterwards after they had killed her. A cord was strewn across the floor. The vinyl coating was stretched and discolored. Someone must have tugged on it with great force. I quickly looked up and gave an understanding nod. There was a bloody knife on the floor. It had been the murder weapon. The instrument of death was caked all the way to the hilt in blood. Clear fingerprints had been left behind. They were probably the culprits. Nene Akazaki had shuffled off the mortal coil. I never expected to see her like this, however. What the hell had happened? In any case, I'd probably have to move closer to get a better look. Her clothes were entirely unrustled, meaning she'd probably been taken out instantly. It didn't seem like rape was the objective here. A bruise in the shape of a slender line snaked around her neck. Faint nail marks were also visible. Crossed cord marks were clear on the back of her neck. The power cord on the floor was likely the culprit. Akazaki's face had been sliced to ribbons. It was painted with so much red that I hardly recognized her as the woman I'd gotten to know over the last month.
しかし、顔面を切り裂いたのはなぜだろうな。
さあな。直接の死因は窒息だろうが、遺体の身元の判明を少しでも遅らせるためか。
Though that obviously failed, seeing as I'd already ID'd her.
犯人がわからんと何とも言えんな。
I think we have a pretty good idea. Further details would have to wait until we determine the killer. Okay, seems like that's all there is to it. Oh, there had to be more to investigate. Okay, my bad. My bad. I mean, there doesn't seem to be anything... There's the cord.
Was me.
Okay.
もうすぐ夏目さんがこっちに来るらしい。
夏目さんが?
Calling me surprised. Especially considering she'd also been at Shinzo Mamiya's studio this morning.
八木沼管理官が現在、間宮真司が桂木真の名義で借りていた事務所を捜索しているからな。そこから応援を頼んだんだ。
そうか。
Things had progressed on that front too, it seemed. That was good to hear. I think that's it, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's it, right? Gotta be.
ほんまにもう、今日は仏さんがようけ出すぎやわ。
I'm still just so taken aback how and why Nene was caught up in this. I mean, it just seems so, like, almost out of character for her. Natsume had finally arrived.
やあ、時坂はん。お久しぶりですな。
さっき会ったばかりじゃないですか。
素で返しちゃあかんよ。うちかて疲れとるんですから。場を和ませてくれてもええんちゃいますやろか。
よくわかりませんが。これ、どう思いますか?
I took a step back and showed Natsume the crime scene.
うん。死因は頸部圧迫による窒息死やろね。凶器はそこに落ちとるコードで間違いないですやろ。
では、その包丁はどうでしょうか?
これか？指紋がべっとりついとるね。見覚えある形やな。ちょい待っとき、時坂はん。
Natsume started fishing through her bag.
見覚えがあるってどういうことですか?
うちの見立てが間違いなかったらさっき見つけたのがあった。これと同じちゃいますやろか。
Natsume flashed a piece of paper. It was a document concerning fingerprints found at a crime scene, and the name of the document was...
間宮真司の指紋?
Yep, I figured. But why? Why would they be here of all places?
せやね。右手の母子の指紋と一致しますな。
いや、待ってください。それだと、赤崎ネネを殺したのは？
考察やからコードの指紋も調べなあかんけど、まあそっちも間宮真司と見て間違いないやろね。
なぜ奴がここに?
It didn't make sense. How in the world was he connected to this case? because Toko, right? Like, come on. Whew, oh my god, okay. I raced towards Shinji Mamiya's office, leaving the transportation of Nene's body to Uzomi and Natsume. Numerous squad cars surrounded the place.
Yaginuma-kan.
I called out to Yaginuma as soon as I saw him.
いやあ先輩、どうしましたか？向こうでも死体が出たようですが。
ああ、その被疑者として間宮真司が浮上している。
それはどういうことですか？
Even Yaginuma was taken aback by the news.
どうもこうも行方不明になっている朽木塔子の身柄も発見できなかった以上、奴が彼女を連れ去った可能性が高い。
それはなぜですか？何か関わりがあったとでも？
それがわからないからこっちに来たんだ。中を調べさせてもらうぞ。
I brushed Yaginuma aside.
別に構いませんよ。現場にあったものはほぼそのままにしてありますから、どうぞご自由に。あ、ついでに言っておきますと。
It was then that Yaginuma flashed a smug smile.
もし何も見つからず、こちらに泣きつかれても知りませんからね。そちらの事件は僕の管轄ではないし、正直興味もありませんから。
ああ、そうかい。
His attitude made me wonder exactly how much evidence had been left behind. That's what I'm saying. I entered Shinkatsuragi's office and found myself in a bizarre white landscape. Okay. It took some time for my eyes to adjust to it all. Everything, the walls, floor, ceiling, was a pastel white. Even the spines of the books on the shelves had been painted white. It was like seeing madness incarnate. This room clearly had not been the product of a sound mind. It almost felt like I'd somehow wandered right into a black and white TV. Several sheets of paper sat atop of the desk. Yaginuma had been telling me the truth. The office really had been left as it was. However, that didn't mean there weren't clues that he deemed irrelevant. So with that in mind, I began my investigation. I checked the manuscript sitting on the desk. The title read, The Shell of Sheol Part 2. It must have been an unfinished work of his, though I could have sworn I'd seen that title before. We have, that was in the magazine. Right, that was the name of the novel in the magazine I found in Toko's room. Shinkatsuragi had written it for the May issue of Art and Literature, meaning this was the next part of it, huh? I saw books lined atop the desk. They'd all been painted white. I could hardly tell what color they originally were. It almost felt like the manifestation of some sort of obsession that had taken root deep inside Shinji Mamiya's heart. However, the books themselves were fairly ordinary, simply novels like The Divine Comedy and Faust. Shinji Mamiya had probably themed his own works after them. What's this? I found torn pieces of paper. A letter? Some pieces were missing, meaning the entire thing wasn't eligible. That aside, though, the handwriting was immaculate. It appeared to have been signed Shinzo. In that case, Shinzo Mamiya must have written this. It wouldn't be odd for her father and son to exchange letters, that much was certain. But why was this one riddled with apologies? Nearly every single scrap of paper had sentences along the lines of, atone for my sins, I apologize, and cannot bear my shame. However, I couldn't tell exactly what Shinzo Mamiya was apologizing for. Whatever it was, I sure wanted to hear the truth from the horse's mouth. I found a notebook in the drawer. As expected, its cover had been painted white as well. Flipping through revealed a page with dates and names on it. A schedule, maybe? March 17th, Yuko Kobayashi. March 28th, Tomoko Kano. April 5th, Suzuriko Yosumiya. April 8th. April 11, Toko Mizuhara. I cursed under my breath. The bastard actually wrote down his victims' names. However, April 8th was left blank. It seems he'd written something there only to erase it later. Something happened that day. Well, can't you do that trick where it's like you go to the other side of the page and then, like, run a pencil lightly over it? I opened the left drawer. It stored a whole host of pens and pencils. Once more, they'd all been painted white too. So he has a list of dates of which he kidnapped and killed the girls, and he included their names. He bothered to fucking include their names, like a fucking psychopath. I opened the doors at the bottom of the bookcase. The insides were jam-packed with books.
また白か。
This stuff was giving me a headache. I didn't have time to go over all of them, not unless I wanted to spend the next few weeks of my life here, and thus I decided to leave that up to the police. Well, I don't think there's anything left for me to... Yeah, I think that's it, right? Have I done enough? Apparently I haven't. I just want to make sure. There's that one. On the floor, maybe. I mean, I just don't like that it gave me an option. No, nothing. I think that's it. I don't think. We'll save here just on the off chance. You never know. An investigation. It wasn't a surprise that there were no clues about Toko's whereabouts, really. Shinji Mamiya couldn't have come back here after killing Nene Akazaki and kidnapping Toko. He wasn't stupid enough to go where the police would be lying in wait. But in that case, where was Toko? Should I leave searching for her to the police, or look myself? I wandered outside as I mulled over my options.
Senpai, ご苦労様でした。
Yaginuma strutted over to me.
何か出ましたか?
いや、直接的な手がかりにつながるものは。
でしょうね。僕らが探した後ですからね。
そっちでは何か出たのか?
You know, that does make me curious. Let me know if there's anything in Shinjo Mamiya's office. If you know, let me know in the comments if there was anything else that I missed. Because I feel like there was something else, but I just don't know.
さあ、どうでしょうね。まあ先輩には関係のないことですよ。これからは全てこちらでやりますんで。
Yaginuma smirked.
どうしても捜査に参加させてほしいとおっしゃるんでしたら構いませんけれどね。
マミやシンジを探しに行くのか?
ええ、もちろん。運が良ければさらわれた少女も見つけられるでしょうね。
そうだな。
Should I take him up on that offer? Ooh, oh god, oh, it's one of these. I'm saving again. Okay, let's think about this. The main advantage we would have of working with Yaginuma is that he has all the resources. So on the off chance we find him and it's something like, because I'm kind of thinking back to the whole ordeal beforehand with that first ending we got when we found Shugo and we found Yukari, and then they were like, oh, you have to cut the key out of Shugo's heart. If we decided to go through and kill Shugo to get the key before the police arrived, you just end up with a dead Shugo. However, if you wait for the police, then the police can get there and you save Yukari and Shugo. And everybody lives happily ever after kind of thing. So, in that respect, I would want to work with Yaginuma. However, Yaginuma's done nothing to fucking help me. You know, like, I found out that it was Shinzo Mamiya. I found out, of course, this is all with the help of Uezomi. I found out where the fucking guy lived. And where, I found out that he was the son of Shinzo Mamiya. Well, I didn't do that. That was Uezomi. But again, we found that out. We found the fucking kill house with all of the victims and all the evidence and stuff. We were the ones who ended up tracking down and finding out who had kidnapped Toko. I mean, this is all stuff that we've been doing on our own. So it makes me not want to work with Yaginuma because for him it's a fucking ego thing. But at the end of the day, it's like it couldn't hurt. right? I'm tempted to work with him just because of the resources. So, for now, that's what I'm gonna do. I caved in to his demands. On the list of my priorities, keeping my dignity ranked nowhere near the prospect of bringing Toko home alive.
わかりました。仕方ありませんね。そこまでおっしゃるのでしたら。
Yaginuma gleefully nodded. At last she'd broken. She'd obsessively slathered layer after layer of powder onto her unblemished face, only to scream in disgust and claw it off. Numerous scars were etched upon her visage, and thus her cycle of smothering her countenance in powder to hide any damage only to claw it right off continued ad nauseum. As a result, her face was quickly worn down like a tattered rag. She suffered from an illness known as dysmorphiophobia. It was a disease where one became so unhealthily obsessed with their appearance that they would fly into a frenzy if they perceived so much as the tiniest flaw in their looks. For her, that burn on her face had been excruciating agony, and so she tried to cover it up with powder even after it had fully healed. What's more, she beat the boy from time to time to distract herself from constant suffering. She punched him, kicked him, and threw objects at him. Sometimes she wouldn't even feed him for days. And yet the boy put up with it all. That was all he could do, since his father simply stood by and watched. Eventually, she cut her own face with a knife. A smile of satisfaction followed, accidented by the rivers of blood trickling down her visage. The boy was terrified. The woman who had once treated him so badly had suddenly transformed into a kind and gentle entity. She wrapped her scarred face up in bandages and hugged the boy, not like a mother would her son, but rather as a woman would her lover. Before the boy even knew what was happening, she kissed him on the lips. The woman slept with the boy every single night after that. Sweet nothings were whispered in his ear as she bared her naked flesh atop him. Then, when she would undo her bandages and unveil her scarred face, and after that she would ask the boy over and over and over and over again, "Aren't I pretty?" The boy sobbed as he begged for clemency, yet she refused to release him. The boy felt a mysterious sensation as he stared at the scarred face. Perhaps it was pure, primal fear itself, and so he let his tongue slip. "Please, keep your hideous face away from me." The woman flew into an ungodly rage hearing those words. Her fingers coiled around the boy's neck as she continued to straddle him. She strangled him with the face of a scorned demon. The boy instinctively pushed her away. She fell back and banged her head on a corner bedpost modeled after the tip of a sword. Blood spurted out from the point of impact like juice from a ripe fruit. It splattered all over the covers, floor, and even the boy's body, painted them all a deep scarlet. The pointed bedpost stuck through the back of her mouth. She convulsed from head to toe, dying red from the blood gushing out of her. The boy was extraordinarily aroused by the sight. The boy's father said nothing even upon beholding his wife's corpse. The body was soon removed and the bloodied covers burned, restoring peace to the boy's room at long last. Unfortunately, peace did not return to his heart. So Fumiya and his sister have an incestuous relationship, or at least he has incestuous feelings towards her. And so obviously we just got Shinzo Mamiya's backstory.
家族。逃げ出したいもの。私にはわからないもの。ずっと必要ないものだと思っていた。だけれど、新たな家族を築くことができたのなら、その思いも変わるかもしれない。
Okay, let's take a minute to just process some of this stuff, right? So, clearly that was Shinzo Mamiya's backstory. Or Shinji Mamiya's backstory, my bad. I think I was saying Shinzo earlier. So his mother, who was, in my theory, Toko's mother, was basically a crazy psychotic bitch who formed this super weird incestuous relationship with her own son, while the father just kind of stood back and let it all happen. Eventually he accidentally killed her, and then he got turned on by her blood, and so that's how he became this deranged killer who cuts up girls and takes pleasure in it. Okay. Hey man, is it really a Japanese game if there isn't some incest in there? Come on. Yaginuma and I rode in separate cars towards Shinjo Mamiya's home in Hoya. The Mamiya Manor, located deep in the middle of a forest near a residential district, seemed exactly the same as when I'd last visited. But there was something here. Oh yeah, I said that right. I just knew it. I tiptoed over to the door. Next, I borrowed some gloves from a cop and gently grabbed the doorknob, but found the door was locked. Okay, how to play this one.
先輩はここに被疑者がいると思いますか？
ここへ来たのはそちらが主導だったろうに。まあいるんじゃないか。いなくとも一番何かが残されている可能性がある。
それを聞いて安心しました。ではどうぞ突入してください。
お前が行くんじゃないのか。
管理官の僕が先に行くはずがないでしょ。さあどうぞ先陣を切ってください。
俺が突っ込んだ途端に不法侵入で逮捕するつもりじゃないだろうな。
まさか何かが見つかればそんなことはしませんよ。
So he was going to do it if he so he was going to do it if we came up empty-handed. Funny guy.
後で文句言うんじゃねえぞ。
I took a few steps back and body slammed the old-fashioned western door. Dust shot up from the ground. However, the door stood its ground. Son of a bitch was sturdier than I thought.
やれやれ、使えない人ですね。
Yaginuma sneered mockingly.
やはり僕がやらなくてはならないようですね。
Yaginuma whipped out his pistol and shot the door. Okay, fucking...
おい。
開きましたよ。
Okay, man. You know, I thought me and Uezomi were loose cannons. Look at this guy. Yaginuma pointed to the busted doorknob. Literally what I just said! What I just fucking said!
では言ってください、先輩。
俺は弾よけじゃねえぞ。
I opened the door despite my grumbling. The inside was just as much a ruin as the outside. Layers of dust caked the floor, leaving a trail of clear footprints behind it. Even the fine furnishings were all discolored, the glass shattered and warped into what looked like the fangs of a mystical beast. Furthermore, the surrounding cobwebs were thick with dust, with no signs of their masters and creators to be found. I covered my mouth with a handkerchief so I wouldn't cough, then cautiously made my way through the area. The newest footprint trail seemed to lead deep into the house. These footprints were Shinji's.
この奥でしょうね。
Yaginuma pointed to a door where the footprints seemed to end.
人がいるとするなら、さっきの銃声で気づかれているとは思うが。
では躊躇する必要もありませんね。どうぞ先輩。
お前は長生きするよ。
I opened the door and found what appeared to be a study. There were no signs of Shinzo Mamiya, nor his son, naturally.
つい先ほどまでいたようですね。
Yaginuma muttered that after touching the seat.
となると、向こうの部屋か。
A door that appeared to lead further into the house was slightly ajar, seeping light out from within. I approached the door before Yaginuma said anything. Someone's here. I quietly opened the door after giving Yaginuma a hand signal indicating that fact. A white domain surrounded me. It was an almost perfectly even world that made me think I was seeing the inside of an eggshell. And right in front of us. Oh my fucking god, what is happening? Stood a diminutive old man. I recognized him. He was the same one I'd met at the museum in Ueno.
Mamiya Shinzo da na.
My gaze shifted to his feet. Lying there was a blood-stained man, Shinji Mamiya. He didn't so much as twitch. The splashes of his scarlet blood were alien to this room.
殺したのですか。
これには随分と苦労をさせてしまった。
Shinzo sounded like a soulless husk.
すべてはわしのせいだ。わしがこれの人生を歪ませてしまった。この部屋がすべてを狂わせたのであろうな。
Shinzo turned to the wall at the far end of the room. Yep. A giant mural took pride of place there. The painting that Toku was so taken by at that museum.
こちらがオリジナルだ。 壁画では持ち出せないのでね。
あなたは以前この絵を歪んだ絵だと評しました。それはなぜですか？
いびつな心で作ったからだよ。わしはこれを完成させるために全てを捨てたのだ。
シンジさんも捨てたのですか？
これが出本したのは完成してからだよ。
見入られる。
I looked up at the girl in shell mural. Shinzo had called this the original, and indeed its intensity was on a whole different level from its smaller counterpart. This one looked even more like Toko. In fact, the resemblance was so striking that it felt like Toko would come falling out if I tore the mortar off the wall.
Toko はどこですか？
これが連れてきた娘ならば、わしの部屋におる。しかし、
行け。
Yaginuma promptly issued an order to a nearby cop without letting Shinzo finish.
しかし、何ですか？
心配せずとも生きてはおったよ。あれは
She's your fucking daughter,
何者だ？
I think.
ただの学生ですよ。少なくともあなたがそれのモチーフに使った方ではありません。
だろうな。あれはもう10年以上前に作ったものだ。
I'm gonna keep my thoughts to myself for now.
それにしても似ていますね。
であるからこそ、こやつは見入られてしまったのだろうな。
下落合にあるアトリエにはこの絵と同じようなオブジェが4つありました。4人の遺体を使っていました。
Shinzo stared at the floor.
愚かなやつだ。しかし、そうさせてしまったのもわしの責任であったのだろうな。
そう思うのでしたら司職の手に委ねてもらいたかったですね。間宮心臓、あなたを間宮真司殺害の現行犯で逮捕します。
Yaginuma took a step forward.
わしを調べても何も出ぬよ。
そんなのは僕に関係ありません。僕はただ事件が解決すればいいんですから。さあ、手を出してください。
I watched that exchange unfold out of the corner of my eyes as I studied Shinji's body. His carotid artery had been split open. A pool of blood drenched the floor beneath him. There was little doubt that this was a spot he'd been killed. However, I didn't see a murder weapon anywhere, which meant...
Yaginuma! そいつから離れろ! まだ凶器を持っている!
Yaginuma leapt back just as he was about to cuff Shinzo. Shinzo drew a shiny object out of his right sleeve at that exact moment. It was a palette knife used for oil paintings. The blade was red with what appeared to be Shinji's blood. It must have been sharpened beforehand.
無駄な抵抗は
心配せずとも償い方は心得ておる。
He's gonna kill himself. Shinzo pressed the knife against his throat. No one had time to stop him. Lukewarm blood rained down on the floor.
くそ、急いで止血を!
Yaginuma barked orders to the nearby officers. They'd all ran over to Shinzo and tried to put pressure on the wound with towels and whatnot. However, it was probably too late. I didn't know that for sure, obviously, but Shinzo was quite advanced in years, and with all that bleeding, he clearly hadn't just inflicted a shallow wound. Still, the squad carried him away. I took one last look at Shinji Mamiya's body, then left the white room, still doused in his father's blood spatter. So I was thinking, just keep in mind, apparently Toko only has, I think, like one, the chromosomes or genes or whatever from one parent. So there's still that to keep in mind here. The cop in the study momentarily tensed up when he saw the state of my clothes as I returned.
朽木トークはいたか?
はい。2階の寝室で発見しました。ですが、
何かあったのか?
ご自身で判断されてください。
Huh? Confused, I passed through the foyer just as some officers were descending from upstairs. Several of them were carrying something. Is that a stroller? If so, it certainly looked bigger than an average one.
おい、それはなんだ？
これは。
The cop stumbled over his words. I dashed halfway up the stairs and checked the stroller. Okay, so I think this emergency surgery probably had to do with removing her limbs. That's going to have been my guess, is that they probably needed to amputate her limbs, which is how she even fit in the stroller in the first place. Toko was right there, sleeping like a baby. It almost looked like she was the very same girl in shell enshrined in that black egg. Her eyebrows twitched from time to time. She's alive. But as soon as I touched the stroller, I noticed it was far too light. All 4 of her limbs were missing. In hindsight, I should have realized it sooner. That as small as she may have been, Toko normally could never fit into a stroller.
Oi. Toko.
What the hell is this?
落ち着かななりまへんえ。
I heard Natsume call to me from the front door.
夏目さん。
ほら、こっちに来てえな。あんさん方もそれおろしんさい。
Natsume ordered the cops around and looked at the stroller they carried.
生きてはいるようやね。手足は切断、お腹も切られとるけど、こりゃ妙やね。
どうしましたか？
今日切ったような傷ちゃいますきちんと処置されとります。まるで術後の。
Natsume suddenly stopped short.
そういや、この子は病院から誘拐されたんやったね。
え
え。意識はありまへんけど、術後の経過が順調なら命の心配はありまへん。ほいでもすぐに連れて行った方がええやろね。
Natsume put her hand in the stroller.
ほら、時坂はん、アンさんが連れてっておくれやす。
I complied and timidly picked up Toko. She was shockingly light, not to mention tiny. I left with Natsume carrying Toko like she really was a baby, before getting in a car that raced toward the Kuchiki Pathological Research Institute. She's a nugget. She's a nugget now, guys. Toko was sent straight to Kuchiki Pathological Research Institute's ICU. Corrector Kuchiki didn't even bat an eye when he saw what had become of Toko. It seemed Natsume's suspicions had been right on the money.
しかしまあ、今日はほんまようさんいろんなことがありましたな。
Natsume yawned as she slumped next to me on a sofa. First, we found those 4 corpses. Then came Toko's kidnapping, followed by Nene Akazaki's murder, and finally Shinji and Shinzo Mamiya's deaths. Toko was the only one we'd saved. And even then, her fate was totally up in the air.
今は何時ですか？
そろそろ日付が変わりますな。
Natsume checked her pocket watch.
時坂藩も今日はもうお帰りやす。ここにおったところで病院さんの邪魔になるだけをせ。
そうですね。
But while I agreed, eating up felt like more than I was capable of.
うちに泊まっていきます？
いや、そんな体力残っちゃいませんよ。
そういうつもりで誘ったんちゃいます？
Hey, listen, Natsume, you're always trying to fucking hit on me, bro. Natsume inflated her cheeks just a tiny bit.
まあ、ええわ。ほいじゃ、うちを帰ります。チャリンコで来てますからな。
ええ。お気をつけて。
Natsume left the waiting room. With her gone, the hospital fell eerily silent. What to do?
おや、まだいらっしゃったのですか。
さすがに疲れましてね。
I lurched my head slightly.
空いている病室がありますから、そこで休んでいかれてはどうでしょう。必要でしたら睡眠導入剤も処方しますが。
Saito, my man.
いえ、病室だけありがたくお借りしますよ。薬はなくても、今なら横になるだけで眠れそうですから。
ああ、でしたら2階の一番奥の部屋をお使いください。
But then it turns out there was another accomplice. Wait, wasn't that one of our theories, though? That he had an accomplice. So maybe there's still a killer on the loose. Well, we'll see.
ありがとうございます。
I showed my gratitude to Saito and trudged over to the second floor. The room at the end of the hall, huh? That was pretty close to where they were keeping Toko, though she was probably conked out from whatever medicines the doctor had used on her. I figured it wouldn't hurt to pay her a little visit. To no surprise, the lights were out. I quietly peeked into the room from the hallway. Someone was there. Wait, that's... It was Chizuru Kuchiki. She was staring at Toko as she slept. It seemed Chizuru hadn't gone home either. Just when I was about to call out to her... And we're going to stop it right there. What the fuck is this game? You should have died. You should have died. Listen, all I'm saying, we were theorizing that there was somebody else who was helping Shinji Mamiya. So there's still that out there, which that might mean nothing, granted. But for Chizuru Kuchiki, who so far has seemingly been the timid, frail, misunderstood, loving mother to Toko, is standing over her nugget daughter's unconscious form, talking about, you should have died. Interesting. Well, on another note, I was fucking right. Okay, I was right that Shin Katsuragi / Shinji Mamiya was the killer. So now, we found everything on him. Both Shinzo and Shinji are dead. Toko's safe, but has had all 4 of her limbs amputated. What now? What now? I guess we gotta figure out who the hell Toko's real parents are. Or even just in general, what she is. We have to figure out what the fuck Chizuru's deal is. We have to figure out what Fumiya's deal is with his little incestuous love towards his sister. There's still so many fucking questions I have. But once again, this fucking game just throws you for a fucking curveball, man. I mean, when it was like, oh yeah, Toko's been kidnapped, I was like, okay, so Shinji did it. But it's like, oh no, fucking Dr. Murase and Akazaki Nene, the school nurse, did it. That was already crazy enough, but then to find out that, oh no, but then Shinzo did track her down, strangled Nene Akazaki, and then cut her face to all shit. Which I think now, obviously now we know why he specifically cut her face like that. Because it was supposed to be reminiscent of his mother and how she had cut her own face up like that. But it's like just... I feel like they might as well have had Kyoko be the one who aided in the kidnapping. Just with how seemingly random it was. I get that there was some, hints here and there that Nene was a little bit, suspicious. But, God, I didn't think that was all gonna cultivate in an attempted kidnapping plot to try and blackmail ransom money out of this rich conglomerate that claims to be Toko's great-grandfather. I mean, Jesus Christ. Now, again, there's this whole family thing. So, it's interesting. You have a guy who's claiming that, yeah, Toko is my I forget if it was granddaughter or great-granddaughter. It was something like that. So I guess we're gonna follow up with that person eventually. But oh my God, I don't even know what to say. Yeah, we're gonna have to see how this all plays out in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching this fucking action-packed episode. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video and tell me in the comment section below what you'd like to see me play next. If you enjoyed this video or any other videos or series on my channel, then I highly recommend that you hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you'll be notified when one of those videos comes out. Anyways, that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!